Not long ago, the Sony games, 5 of them, got the FSR 3.1 update. I've already covered the 2 Spider-Man games. I want to cover 3 more games here. FSR 3.1 was the update recently to the FSR technology that gives us the upscaling and frame gen. While there's no real difference to the frame gen that we got in 3.0, there is a difference to the upscaler, as we've got now an updated upscaler, no longer the older FSR 2.2. So this does help with the image quality, and I notice with performance a little bit depending on what game, but it's more about having the game look better than perform better, because we all know that FSR, especially in its earlier stages, was a bit rough, especially if you're used to something more like NVIDIA's DLSS, which has really come a long way, and even Intel's XeSS does a really good job on image quality, but performance can take a little bit of a hit. With FSR 3.1 here, I feel like it's a pretty good balance. I'd like to see even more improvement, but as you can see here, while you still get a little bit of that fraying around the smaller pieces of hair and stuff like that, this is not near as blocky or rough looking as what FSR would have been on balanced for me before. Now we'll switch through some different options here when it comes to FSR and take a look. I chose this spot because of the rain, and I don't know if you remember upscalers before, but we used to pretty much lose the rain when we would go through the different options on up to performance. Performance was still maintaining good image quality and a boost to FPS in this game, and same thing with ultra performance, another 8 FPS, and we didn't lose all of the rain. Now I can see the differences in some of the flickering coming in, and the lines aren't as clean out in the distance as we go back to balance. There's definitely an image quality difference, but it's much improved over what it used to be, and on the smaller screen on the Steam Deck, you don't notice those things as much sometimes as you would on your larger TV or monitor. So this is a nice little jump in my opinion, especially here in Ratchet and Clank when it comes to the overall image quality. And if you're someone that wants to be able to push more frame rate, like here we're down 27, 30, 32, on performance or ultra performance, we'd actually be staying another 5 to 10 FPS higher there. Even though you'll notice the difference, it would still look nice. So all in all, I think this is a good update for this game. We're also going to take a look at Horizon Forbidden West and Ghost of Tsushima here, but I wanted to take a look at Ratchet and Clank first, since it's one of the games I didn't get to cover last time. Now switching over to Horizon Forbidden West, this one is really improved. Now performance is still bad. I do not like playing this game on the Steam Deck, but when it comes to image quality, it's a lot better than what we had in FSR before. Before, the plants and the hair and everything else would get pretty blocky and pretty rough when it came to upscaling, even on balanced or something like that. And while this may be not as good of a capture here off of YouTube, it still shows some of that ghosty stuff around the hair and things that we were getting that we just don't really get anymore. It's much cleaner around the finer details, just like what I was pointing out over on Ratchet and Clank. And this is a big deal because, you know, even as we get new hardware, we're really going to need upscalers and stuff to really get us the FPS that we want. So we want them to reduce latency and help image quality when it comes to these. Now sitting here at quality FSR 3.1, we're going to go ahead and switch through a couple like we did over on Ratchet. We'll switch over here to performance, and you don't see near of the degradation in the image quality that we used to see. And we'll switch over to ultra performance, and while you watch the grass and the leaves and stuff change when we lose some of that quality, it is not as blocky or as rough or as blurry as what it used to be. I think overall it's much better. Now this area of the game used to dip down to about 19 FPS and stutter and have a lot of issues, and I noticed that this area is running a lot better now. It's still not great, but it's running a lot better, and I don't know if that's because of 3.1 and the updates or game updates or what, because it's been a little while. But yeah, it was running better. Now getting into some combat or areas where the colors are like all the same here and everything's brown, I can definitely notice the upscaling a lot more, because I think it's having trouble with her brown hair and with everything else. It definitely doesn't look as good in something like this with all the motion and the color. So I do want to point that out. It's not perfect, but it is improved over what we had before. Just like in Ratchet, in this game it just looks a lot better. But unfortunately, like I said, for me, performance of this particular game just isn't great. Now the last one we'll switch over to is Ghost of Tsushima here, and I have this recorded overhead because this game still won't play in SDR on the OLED deck with HDR. You have to play in HDR if you are in handheld, so that's what I'm still stuck with here. But this is one of the newest of the ports, and as far as performance goes, from the 3.0 we had at launch to the 3.1 now, it's pretty much the exact same game performance, frame times, and all of that. But if I'm sitting here in person and I'm watching this stuff, I can notice a difference in that FSR upscaling. There's just certain things with like your blades of grass, your smaller details, your hair, movement in combat, and that type of stuff that just in general does look better. Hopefully you guys have tried all this and are noticing the differences as well. Even right here, I'm going to go from balance to performance because we have all these leaves blowing around and stuff. And yeah, it really doesn't get too nasty looking. It stays pretty clear and clean considering going up to performance on FSR. I mean, this used to be really bad on FSR 1.0, even 2.0, 2.1. It would get really bad looking. You couldn't even think about using performance or anything above balanced or quality. But I think with 3.1, we're getting much closer to where if resolution is the issue, the GPU is bound, and you need more FPS to be playable, performance and ultra performance are definitely getting to a point, image quality wise, where that might be possible. Now, all these ports have frame gen. The Spider-Man games, these 3 games, they all have in-game frame generation that you can kick on and use on the Steam Deck. A lot of people are going to like to use this because it's not super great and it can add some input latency, but you can try it out and give it a shot if you want to, and depending on what your base FPS is, it'll depend on your experience. But you will need to manually set your GPU clock to 1600 because you can see the clocks all over the place. It's really messing up the frame gen and the frame rate. As soon as we click that on and keep it locked, it smooths out, we get more frames out of it, we even hit 60 there, and it actually looks really good on the Steam Deck. I can definitely feel the input latency on this one though, so it's something that you're going to have to try out for yourself and see if you want to use it on the deck. Alright guys, that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Ratchet and Clank, Horizon Forbidden West, and Ghost of Tsushima, the 3 games I wanted to cover because I already did the 2 Spider-Man games before. I think AMD's on the right track. I love seeing these improvements to FSR, the upscaler, frame generation, and all of that, and hopefully they keep it up, and it'll definitely help out the handhelds as we go into the future. Alright guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.